best preparation for tomorrow is doing your best today. H. Jackson Brown Jr. Welcome to the Guyana Dialogue. I'm your hostess, Shamisa Ali. A very pleasant good evening to everyone joining us on Facebook and on YouTube. Tonight's topic is the status report of Guyana Housing Program and a look into Building Expo 2023. The Guyana Dialogue is being sponsored by Coordinating Council of Guyanese based in the US, UK, Canada, Guyana, and the Caribbean. Funding support is by well-known philanthropist Dave Narine from Dave West Indian Imports. Please welcome my moderator for tonight, Dr. Tara Singh.
Very much, Shamisa, and welcome to listeners.
Pleasure, Dr. Tara. Our panelists tonight is Professor Muniram Pradhu and Professor Narayan Prasad.
Hello.
Good evening. Our guest tonight is the Minister within the Ministry of Housing and Water, the Honorable Susan Rodrigues.
Good evening.
Good evening and welcome everyone. Dr. Tara, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome, Minister. We are grateful to have you again on this program. We know you're one of the rising stars of the PPP. We've been monitoring your election campaign as well as your work at your ministry. And I can tell you the consensus of opinion of Guyanese over here as well as in Guyana, you're very hardworking, efficient, and also intelligent and smart minister. So I want to let you know that. And you have the respect of so many people. We are grateful that the people PPP has ministers of your caliber.
Thank you, Dr. Tarasi. You're very kind.
Yeah. Now, with relation to the housing development program that you have, it is divided probably into two, house lots and home construction, etc. So let's start. If you give us a brief review of how many house lots you have allocated so far, over 50,000, how many homes you have helped to construct, the different types of homes, and how much more you intend. Would you realize the target of 50,000 house lots by 2025 as promised? So if you can comment on that, then the panelists will ask you for the questions.
Sure. It's a pleasure to be here with you this evening. And let me just say good evening as well to all of those who are viewing us or listening to us. I'm very pleased to be here, especially at this time, meaning where we just recently celebrated our 3rd anniversary in office. And I must say that the last 3 years have been perhaps the most difficult 3 years of my life, certainly, but also the most rewarding. And that is because I get to be a minister in a cabinet and serving under a president who has been doing great work. And at this time as well, meaning this time in our country, where our country is on the cusp of transformation, and we have been seeing this transformation take place almost on a daily basis. So this is a very important time in the history of our country to be witnessing this time and to be serving during this time in our country. So the last 3 years have been tremendously successful for our government. I believe it was our president who reported that we have achieved almost perhaps 90% of our entire manifesto commitment. So that is the Manifesto 2020. So that is perhaps the best update I can give on the progress that we've made since being in office in August 2020. But looking across to the housing sector, I can report a similar type of progress. So when we took office in August of 2020, of course, we have ventilated already um, the state of the housing sector, which we inherited, and similarly the water sector, of which we inherited. There was no Ministry of Housing. There was no housing policy that was governing a housing program for the people of our country. Similarly, the water sector was in neglect. The infrastructure, meaning the, the water network and the distribution network, was not upgraded for years. There was no money invested in that network, in our treatment plants, etc. And so we saw tremendous neglect here in the water sector as well. We were very fortunate coming into government and knowing exactly what we needed to deliver to the people of Guyana. So knowing that we promised 50,000 house lots, knowing that we promised to deliver clean and safe water to the people of our country, knowing that we promised to uh, to remove the VAT from building materials, and that we would encourage home ownership among our people, especially young people and vulnerable people. All of what I'm saying now is in our 2020 manifesto. So all of this we have achieved, and we continue to achieve on a daily basis as we roll out our housing program across the country. So the housing program on the coastland, and similarly we have a housing program in the hinterland areas as well. So are over the halfway point of our 50,000 house lots. So we have surpassed 25,000 lots already allocated. And we have the Building Expo coming up as well, where we will continue that allocation process. That will be our next big dream realize allocation activity, where thousands of people will receive house lots. So we try to ensure that we at least reach our minimum target of 10,000 annually, and that will keep us on track to ensuring that we reach the 50,000 target by 2025. One of the things that we did not promise in our 2020 manifesto was the construction of houses or homes. But when we came into government and we started to implement our housing program, and in pursuit of the the promise to help people to acquire home ownership, one of the measures that we implemented was this aggressive housing construction drive. So we engaged private sector, we engaged the banks, we got them to lower interest rates. Mind you, this was all taking place in a global environment and in a global economy that was seeing interest rates rise across the world. And in Guyana, we saw interest rates lowered. So this was a direct result of the aggressive housing drive. So we negotiated with the banks on behalf of our beneficiaries, and also we engaged the private sector or private developers to come on board to construct houses for the housing program. And of course, a lot of Guyanese are choosing to have the housing unit as opposed to to acquiring land alone. One, because it's faster, but I believe the faster to get to a home. But also, I believe that they have recognized that we are using economies of scale, And so therefore, if they tried to build this single unit home on their own, it would cost them more. But if they come through our housing program, we are trying to control prices using economies of scale. So all of our contractors, they build at a price that we have set. And a further benefit to the beneficiary is that we oversee the entire process. So throughout the life of the project, throughout the construction of the project, we have engineers and clerks on ground to ensure that there's quality control. So if something goes wrong, or the customer or the beneficiary is not satisfied or believes that the contractor is using substandard material, for example, they can write us and we will have that contractor address it. So they're getting good quality for their money, and they're getting into a housing unit faster. Introducing this housing construction drive was also a way for us to encourage occupancy in new areas. So ensuring that we can move hundreds of people into the area as soon as the infrastructure work is completed. But also we wanted to address the ill, so to speak, of housing schemes being unoccupied, or portions of older housing schemes being unoccupied for long periods of time, maybe sometimes years. So we want to encourage occupancy, and therefore we saw the housing construction drive as a way to encourage that occupancy. And of course, it brings with it a whole lot of benefits to our Guyanese people and the people who are coming through the house lot allocation program, the housing drive. We are at different stages of construction for approximately 1,800 homes. So that's how many we have built from 2020 to now. But they are at various stages of completion. So some are completed, some are maybe 50%, 60, 70%, and some are at the commencement stage. So we are carefully monitoring this process. Many times we have to go out to advertise for contractors to build homes because it takes a long time for them to complete their individual contracts. And of course, as the demand grows for housing units, we have to look for more contractors and labor to build the housing units. So often you'll see us go out advertising for contractors to do that. And if we had more resources available in the private sector, we would welcome the opportunity to ensure that this process moves faster and that we can cater to more individuals, because this, I believe, is one of the bigger steps to ensuring that people acquire home ownership and not just a plot of land.
Let me just seek a clarification. The homes that you are building, they're in different categories, right? My understanding is 3 different categories. Can you give us an idea of the estimated cost for each category?
So we have the low-income home that is approximately $5.2 million. It is $5.2 million. And the cost of the lot would be somewhere around $300,000 for that low-income lot. So that's the low-income home that in total would cost about $5.5 million. And you can get a low-income mortgage at the bank for maybe 3.5%, 3.8%, depending on which bank you go to, for up to $6 million. So we are right within that ceiling. Then we have the moderate income home, which is a single elevated home. So it's a 600 square foot home. It's very similar to the low income model, but this one is elevated. So it's on columns. That is $7.5 million, and we have done that in the Commons Lodge area. We have built hundreds of those homes in the Commons Lodge area. Then we have another category of home, the middle income, which is a 3-bedroom bungalow home. That's about $9 million. And then we have two models of the young professional models, which is perhaps in the upper income category. So we have the flat 3-bedroom model that goes for about $17 million. And then we have the two-story home, which is a larger home. That's about $22 million. So there's, if like I mentioned before, if people were to try to build single units on their own, it would cost them a lot more. And we have done many of these units. The young professional units is very, very popular. And we have an entire scheme, the young professional scheme in Providence. If people want to take a look at the homes, they're very, very charming homes, whether it's the flat or the two-story, and large homes where people can be comfortable and they have enough land space for them to do a little bit of gardening and park their vehicles and so on. So having access to homes of this quality really changes the path of life of many people. And I've witnessed it firsthand, seeing people go from renting and working, saving up a little bit of money, and just waiting for that opportunity to own their own home, because they can easily convert their rental payment to a mortgage payment. And the cost of rent is very high. So they can easily convert that payment to a mortgage payment. So given the opportunity, people are very eager to accept the housing unit.
Just clarification, you said in the case of low income, you have 5 million plus, you have a separate charge for the house lot. But for the moderate, you give a figure for the house, but there is no mention about house lot. Is the price
So
included?
a moderate, yeah, the price varies depending on the income category. So you have the low, moderate, middle, and high. And then this also varies based on location and size. So all of these things are variable. So there's no fixed price for the low income or the middle or high income across all areas and categories. It varies based on the size. In some areas, depending on the geography of the area, you can perhaps get some bigger size lots, and so we price them per square foot. But the average price, I guess, would be somewhere around $700,000 to $900,000 would be the moderate. The middle would be perhaps around 1.2. I'm giving you the average here.
Yeah.
It doesn't vary much from that. 1.2, and then the high income would be over 2 million plus.
Okay. Just before I pass you on to Dr. Buru, one final clarification. When a person is allocated a house lot, how long does he or she have to build a house? Is there any time constraint, or they can have it not building for several years? What is the policy then?
Right. So when we allocate, we are usually at the point where we are doing the infrastructure work at the same time. So we have to put in the roads, drainage, bridges, electrical network, water distribution network. We are allocating at a pace where the infrastructure work has to keep up with the allocation process. But we are trying our earnest to catch up with the allocation process. So the beneficiary is called the allottee. They make a down payment. They're given an allocation letter, and they're given some time to make additional payments. So people sometimes don't have all of this money up front, and we understand that, and we are very flexible. So we give people the opportunity to be able to make payments incrementally as we complete the infrastructure work. Some people pay off in that period that they're waiting to sign their agreement of sale, and some struggle, but we may sign an agreement with them to ensure that they make small payments on a monthly basis. Once they sign their agreement of sale, once we're at the point where they execute their agreement of sale, they then have 1 year in which to construct. So that's in the agreement of sale. They have 12 months to begin construction. I don't believe it's to completion. I could be wrong, but I know they have to at least commence within 12 months.
Right.
But when they and so they once they pay off and they've commenced the construction, we process their title. Now, when they are issued their title, and this is where it gets difficult for us to act, because once you receive an ownership document in Guyana, whether it's a transport or a certificate of title, nobody can take that away from you. You cannot repossess a people's land. And so sometimes a lot of people don't finish that construction. And that's why you see sometimes buildings halfway, and some people haven't started. And so that's where it becomes difficult for us to monitor. But we also don't want all of these people waiting in the system, because some people need the title to be able to access a loan from the bank. And we don't want to stall them up. We don't want to make it difficult for people to own land or to be able to purchase a home. So the short answer to your question is yes, we do sign an agreement of sale with them that says that they have to commence construction within 12 months, but the process doesn't always go as seamlessly as that.
All right, thank you. Professor Boudou, any question or clarification for the
Yes,
minister?
Minister Rodrigues, good to have you again here on the show. The process you described, or the processes you described, sounds very, very good. Are these moving smoothly? What are the challenges you have?
Well, there are lots of challenges, obviously. I think the most obvious one is that we have a lot of people that are still waiting for an allocation. And I think we are victims of our own success, because when people see the work that we're doing, they get excited. And young people especially, so the between 21 to 35-year-olds, they make up the bulk of our new applicants. So they're almost waiting. I have 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds that come to the office to say, I want to put in my house lot application so that by the time I start working, I could be allocated. Well, we have a policy that you have to be 21 years old. So if we were to accept all of those applications, then we would be even more bombarded. So that's why I reference that, because it exemplifies the excitement that people have around the housing program, but also the expectation. And that expectation is growing every day as people see us making progress in the housing sector, as they hear of these stories of people getting their house lots, getting their homes, and they see these testimonials, and they see the ministry working almost 24 hours a day. That expectation grows, and of course, people submit their application with the confidence that they will be allocated one day, and one day soon. So almost for every allocation that we make, we receive a new application. So so that's the first challenge, is that we have a lot of um, pending applications still. I wish we would be able to exhaust it, but it's not as seamless as that. We have a lot of challenges in our infrastructure program. So, well, you're an engineer, you'll know that a lot of variables every single day, whether it's the weather, labor shortage, material shortage. All of these variables can affect the progress of the infrastructure program. The guys have been doing uh, an extremely good job. Sometimes it's hard to, or you know it's hard to be tough on the contractors, because I know that they are working hard and they have a lot of challenges too, sometimes with weather and labor shortage and all of that. But we have a program and we have a timeline that we have to stick to. So oftentimes we'd have to bring them in for meetings to say, what's going on. People are depending on you, and I always like to remind them of that when they're executing these works, and they are focused on the project itself, I try to remind them that there are real people that are waiting on them to start their lives, because those people need access to the lands that they are developing and opening up for them to build their homes. So we try as much as possible to work along with them, but that causes some delay as well when the weather is bad. And you know that we have almost for 3 years we haven't had like a single dry season. The rain has been uh, consistent almost every month for those 3 years. I know Minister Zulfi complains a lot about that too in the agriculture sector, and flooding and all of that. So those are my top two challenges, I would say. The variables in the infrastructure work, and the fact that we have a huge backlog at the ministry to still get through.
Corruption that is real, alleged, or perceived is always present in construction works all over the world, not only in Guyana. What kind of accountability do you have in place to stem corruption? In other words, a related question is, how do you know you're getting value, both in terms of time and money, for the expenditures in housing?
So you mean in terms of the contractor specifically you're talking about?
That's one area.
Right. So we always have, for every site, every single work site that we have a clerk of works that is posted there permanently. That is somebody who is employed through the Ministry of Housing. So everybody has their bill of quantity, and we have our employed a clerk of works who sets up an office at every single project site, and they are there. He or she is there permanently until that project is completed. We then have a supervisor for all of those clerk of works by area, by geographical area. So we may have, let's say, just for sake of argument, 15 clerk of works on the East Coast. We then have a supervisor assigned to the East Coast who is overseeing all of those clerk of works at the various sites, and who is an engineer, a qualified engineer, and then that engineer reports to the project director, who is most often at our breakdown office. So we have a team of engineers, and our projects department has been growing rapidly because we have to find all of this manpower to oversee these sites. So that's one of the departments that has been growing significantly, because we need so much manpower to be able to ensure that our projects are completed according to the bill of quantities. Recently, we started doing something else as well, not just the Ministry of Housing, but the government at large. in the community road upgrade program, where we saw last year, we went out through a collaboration among three ministries: Ministry of Housing, Local Government, and Public Works, where we did the construction, the upgrading of 1,000 roads. That was very difficult to manage and monitor. So what we started doing, and this was a directive from the president, is that we started to get the local NDCs involved. So we gave them, every time a road is being upgraded or roads are being upgraded within their NDCs, we gave them the bill of quantities and we enlisted their support in monitoring the project. And we also encourage citizens to do similar monitoring. So when people post things to Facebook and so on, it's actually helpful to us. People don't have to be afraid to do that. If something is not right on a work site, and people are convinced that they're not getting value for money on a particular project, they can post it, or they can send it to me or any one of the ministers. We have said this publicly, that people can reach out to us so that we can address it. We cannot be everywhere at all of these locations all of the time. And so we need as much help as possible. And so if people have information and they are of the opinion that they are not getting, that the government is not getting value for money, they are free to report that, and we encourage that. Even if people are being inconvenienced by a project, let's say a contractor has loads of sand that he's not covering or wetting, and the sand is affecting people in the community. Even that we try to address. We try to clear the roadways so that even though we have this massive development taking place, we can try to make it as easy on people as possible, or as convenient as possible. We know it can be inconvenient, and it inconveniences a lot of people, but we try as far as possible to ensure we're getting value for money and to ensure that people's lives are not disrupted too much.
Yeah, that's a pretty dangerous situation to ask the public to be a project, to look at a project, because that person is not technically qualified. And so that you open that public, right, to legal action, right, because they don't know
but we
whether that's
have
something
people
bad or good or
who would
technically
see
correct.
something like they would, if a road is completed, for example, and 2 weeks later a pothole develops, then obviously that's not value for money. That doesn't take an engineer to figure that out. So we ask people to report that kind of thing, because then we also have to find out who was the supervisor for that project, who was the clerk of works, because obviously that was not completed to specification, and therefore the contractor needs to fix that, because there is a liability period as well. So in that case, the citizen can assist in a big way.
Yeah, but this could be the fault of your program, your quality control people, to the government quality control
Exactly,
people.
precisely, yes.
Okay,
All right,
so let's move from that, because that's more technical. One last question before I go to the rest of the slide. Are
Go
these
ahead.
house lots and houses in planned sustainable communities, say schools, easily accessible transportation, opportunities for jobs, and so on?
I didn't hear the question, sorry.
No, are these house lots and houses in planned sustainable communities that have schools, easily accessible transportation, opportunities for jobs, and so on?
Absolutely, and we take our sustainable development goals, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, very seriously. So sustainable development goal number 11 is one of our guiding principles: building sustainable communities. And so when we are looking at acquiring land for a new housing scheme, for example, it is standard for us to have experienced planners. So we have experienced planners at the ministry We have a separate department for that. We have a department of planners and surveyors. So they would design this housing scheme. They would ensure that we have the various income categories, but it would be all of the residential lots would be integrated. We would then always ensure that there are green spaces, that there are spaces for schools, future development of schools, hospitals, health centers, and of course, there is proper zoning for commercial activities and industrial activities, which can create jobs in the future as we develop the housing scheme. So people can live and work within their housing scheme. So this starts very early in the process. This starts from the time we are planning a housing scheme and designs are being drawn. It is developed and it's done in a sustainable manner. And also, as you mentioned, transportation, access to transportation, and so on. And recently, we've even started leaving started to plan for areas like markets, for example, because we're taking into consideration our local culture here and our practice of wanting fresh fruits and vegetables to cook. So, leaving an area that we can subdivide up for a market within a housing scheme so people don't have to go far to get fresh fruits and vegetables.
All right, Minister, thank you. Professor Narayan, your clarification or question for the Minister?
Thank you, Minister Rodrigues. As I see it, you are faced with three dilemmas. One is the relocation of squatters. Two, in Georgetown area, there are enclaves of poverty, which will come under the aegis of urban renewal. And thirdly, in the rural sector, housing development takes place in a different fashion. How would you address these three to make sure that you are not contributing to the formation of classes and the separation of classes?
So, thank you for that. Thank you for that question. So, we believe that the housing sector can be the great equalizer. And I'm very convinced of that. Because during the execution of this project or this housing program, you will see wealth to the people of Guyana. So if I go back a little bit and we go pre-1992, before Chetty Jagan became president and before the PPP came to government, there was no structured housing program in Guyana. And so everybody was forced, so Guyanese were forced on the PNC to take up informal settlements. So they squatted, in other words. And then when the PPP came to government in 1992, of course, we know the state of the economy. It was a bankrupt country, and they could not afford a housing program on the magnitude and scale at which we are now able to execute this housing program. But the PPP and Dr. Jagan were convinced that we needed a housing program for people. And so they went to several multinational corporations to borrow money to fund this program. One of the stipulations and that we've never moved away from is the subsidization of this program and the scale of subsidization. So a house lot, every single house lot is heavily subsidized by the government of Guyana. In some cases, in the case of the low income earner, almost 90% subsidization. But coming back to squatting for a bit, in the late 90s, I believe it was around 2000, the year 2000, the Ministry of Housing, Central Housing and Planning Authority, did an inventory to find out how many squatter settlements we have across the country, because that was a real issue, and you're pointing it out now. They found over 200 informal settlements across the country. So along with the housing program, with the house lot allocation program, you had people who had taken up informal settlements, and who had built homes, so they had expended money, in some cases their savings, and to fund a relocation program for everyone would be too expensive, too inconvenient for people. So we started the regularization program. And today we have regularized approximately 175 settlements of those 200 settlements that were inventorized in the year 2000. The others are mostly cases for relocation because they are along a conservancy, for example, and then they cannot be allowed to stay there because it's not fit for housing, and it's not habitable, and of course it may be a health risk because they can contaminate the conservancy and cause a public health issue. So they would have to be relocated in those cases. So the regularization program and the relocation program supplement the housing program as well. So while we're making house lot allocations, we're also continuing our program of regularization and in some cases relocation. Now, when I was talking about the developing sustainable communities, I did say that we plot out areas for the different income categories, but they are by no means separated from each other. So there are no buffer zones, for example. There are no walls, there are no buffer zones. All of these people live in a community where they perhaps live on a different street, but they're all living within one community. And so we don't exclusively have a high income area or exclusively have a middle income scheme where it's inaccessible or it's a gated community. The government does not build gated communities. All of our communities are integrated in a way where people do not know who is their neighbor. So when we are allocating, during the allocation process, it's a lottery process. You select randomly a lot number from an envelope, and so you never know who your neighbor is. And so even beyond ensuring that we break down the walls of classism, we are also ensuring that our schemes are integrated ethnically. So nobody knows who is their neighbor. And so you have schemes that are made up of all the races and people from different backgrounds and religion in our housing schemes. And that's the beauty, I believe, of the housing program. And so the house lot allocation process is a fair one. It's random. It's a lottery process. And also for those people who are squatting and who are unable to maybe access that loan that somebody else can, we try as far as possible to regularize those areas and to ensure that those people receive a certificate of title or a transport so that they can have legal connection to GWI and a legal connection to the Guyana Power and Light. And we invest even in squatting areas in the same way that we are investing in infrastructure work in our housing schemes. Similarly, as soon as we regularize an area, a squatting area, we invest in infrastructure. So we upgrade their infrastructure. We ensure they have proper drainage so they're not living in filth. And right away, immediately, once we do that, their property values increase. And then they have an ownership document they can take to the bank. They can access financing. They can make that much needed improvement on their home, or they can get a small loan to start a business. So the program at the Ministry of Housing is very, very comprehensive. It's a very big workload because it has a lot of moving parts, and we have to do this in a way, we have to do housing in a way that is conscious socially as well. And we try as much as possible to do that in a humanitarian way, even when we have to relocate people. You would have seen examples where we had to relocate people, and we go above and beyond to ensure that their lives are not severely disrupted, and we ensure that they move from one area and go to another area and they go into a home. There is a strict process and protocol that we have to follow when we are relocating people.
All right. Thank you, Minister. Professor, you have a follow-up question?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The current situation in Guyana, and you probably have faced this practically every day, where investors will come in with a plan for planned communities to build like 100 homes or 200 homes or 300 homes. But most of these development plans are within close proximity to Georgetown. How does the government, or how does your ministry accommodate or make certain arrangements? Because you do not want to discourage investments into housing, and Georgetown alone is not the example of Guyana. Rural Guyana, most of Guyana is rural, and rural people like to have larger house lots so that they have a garden, because many of them, they sustain themselves with backyard gardens and things like that. But again, you don't want to discourage, and you don't want to have a dual economy where you have the rural areas having an agriculture base and the close, because it's only one urban area as far as I'm concerned. But again, you're forced to balance this with investors who have that preference for being closer to the urban area. What are some of the challenges you see in a structure like that, and how are you able to deal with it?
So you're right. People gravitate naturally to urban areas, and where there is population, and with population you have access to a workforce. So naturally, people want to go and invest in a concentrated area. But we have been spending a lot of time in government trying to explain what our vision is for our country as we move forward. So even the far-flung areas now, so even Region 3, for example, that was seemingly cut off from Region 4 before, even though we had the Demerara Harbor Bridge there all along, all of the investment was being done in Region 4. And a lot of housing schemes developed in Region 4. And years ago, and President Ali would tell you, when he developed the Parfait Harmony housing scheme, he had to almost force people to go there. That's in Region 3. He had to almost force people, but he knew back then what the vision was and what his vision was for the urban development of our country. And so he knew that Region 3 would one day soon be the development would mirror what is taking place in Region 4, and we would need access to a workforce, that we would one day build a permanent bridge over the Demerara River. So all of these things, a lot of the plans that we are implementing now, we didn't come up with them yesterday. These were plans that were developed before 2015. A lot of the roads that we are building now were there. The plans and all of that were there. And if the PPP had remained in office in 2015, those would have been built already, like the 4 lane from Mandela to Eccles, and now we were taking it from Eccles to Diamond. That plan was already there, but the previous administration, they didn't do anything with it. But the point I'm making is, we know what the bigger picture is and the vision is for our country. And so we have to sell that, not only to our people, not only to Guyanese, but also to foreign investors. And so they have to understand that across the country, there will be development. Similarly, in Region 6, where we are making huge investment there, in hospital, in a huge stadium that is being built there. We're building a new housing scheme there, Palmyra, where you will see hotels going up, condominiums going up. So we in building out these urban centers in all of these other regions, you are taking the investment to the people. You are taking the investors to the people, and this will help to create jobs as well for those people in the country area, as we said, or the non-traditional region of Region 4, the other areas. You're creating employment by creating interest in the region. When there's a hype of activity and people coming in to invest, they don't have to put all their money in one place. There are options. So this development is carefully planned, it's strategic, and it's to ensure that our people benefit. So in building these stadiums and so on, for example, in the other regions, we are carefully creating an environment for investment in those regions and for creating employment for our people and training and all of this. So I think if investors who are wise and who understand this vision, I think they will have no difficulty investing in the other regions.
All right, Minister, thank you. We have only a few more minutes. I would like if you can give us a brief rundown of the water situation, potable drinking water.
Sorry.
Both for the hinterland and the coastland. What progress have you made so far?
Sure. So we have an ambitious target in the water sector, just as we do in the housing sector. So in pursuit of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 6, access to safe and clean water for all by 2030, we are aggressively chasing that target. And we believe that we can do that 5 years in advance. We believe that we can do that by 2025. And that is because we have developed a strategic plan for the Guyana Water Inc. for the 5 years that we are in government. So if I take the coastland, for example, the common complaint here is the quality of water. So about 98% of the communities on the coast have access to water already. So the complaint is access to treated water, because we have a situation on the coastline with these deep wells that have high iron content. And so we have devised a plan to ensure that by 2025, through the construction of 13 water treatment plants, 7 of which we have already awarded signed contracts, and construction has commenced. This was done last year, October. So October 2022, we signed contracts for the construction of 7. Recently, you would have seen a loan approved through the Caribbean Development Bank for the construction of a further 5 through a loan through the CDB. So we will be going out to tender soon for those 5 water treatment plants. And then later on this year, we will be looking to build a 13th water treatment plant in the area of the Hope Canal, using surface water to feed that water treatment plant. So that is in terms of the construction of new water treatment plants. We also are looking to employ the inline filter technology, which can help us in other areas filter water, and so that people can have drinking water coming through their taps. So this is another type of technology, and it's cheaper. It's just a filter that we're putting in those areas that can last a very long time. It's not a short-term intervention. It is a long-term intervention. And we also have to spend a massive amount of money upgrading our network, our transmission and distribution network, to bring more water to the treatment plants, and also to take more water from the treatment plants, take treated water from the treatment plants to more communities. So a lot of our network has to be extended. And so that's why you have a lot of contracts you will see advertised for the extension of our distribution network to reach more communities, to take treated water to them. So that is, in summary, what the Coastland Water Treatment Program is about, and how we will ensure that the people on the coast receive treated water. 90% of the people on the coast will receive treated water by 2025. When we came to government, the analysis was that we are about 52% coverage. So we devised this strategic plan to take us to 90%. We do also have a lot of non-revenue water, which we want to address. So we are purchasing meters and installing meters and so on, for us to reduce our non-revenue water. This will help, of course, the company to pay its bills, and also ensuring that we have an active maintenance program to address leakages, which will also help us to reduce our non-revenue water. On the hinterland, the aim there is to ensure that we have 100% access to water by 2025, because we have many communities in the hinterland that still do not have access to a water source. So maybe they use water, they do rainwater harvesting, or they get water from a creek or a nearby stream. And in many cases, it is not nearby. They have to walk great distances. So we have made tremendous progress in the hinterland through our construction of wells and installing photovoltaic systems, building reservoirs, trestles, and storage tanks to service communities in the hinterland. And we've made significant progress there. In 2020, 46% of our hinterland communities had access to water. At the end of 2022, we had improved that significantly to 75%. by the end of 2023, when at the completion of or at the implementation of all of our programs for this year, 2023, we would have improved access to 89%. So we have this well coordinated to ensure that by 2025, 100% of our hinterland communities will have access to clean water. And in the hinterland, we don't have that issue of high iron content. The water that we get in the hinterland from the rocks is very, very pure. So it doesn't have the iron content, the challenge of the iron content that we have here on the coast.
Thank you, Minister. Just one final thing, if you can please give up a short, I know the time is on the Expo 2023. We need to get more time with you.
We can talk for hours on housing or water, trust me.
Yeah, I know. So if you can please give us a quick rundown on the Expo 2023.
So we're very pleased to be putting on the International Building Expo 2023. Last year, we returned after a 7-year hiatus, and we were back with a bang. It was a phenomenal expo. Everybody who went to the expo gave us positive feedback on the benefits of the expo, as well as feedback that they had a good time, that they enjoyed the expo. This year, we're trying to top that even more. We have sold so far about 70% of all of the booths. I believe it's more than that now. It was 70% days ago, the last time I checked. So it's more than that now. So those booths are gone. We have a lot of interest in the Building Expo because of the reputation of the Building Expo. We're trying to keep it authentic. We're trying to attract people in the construction sector so that people who are coming to the expo have an opportunity to see as much as possible on building materials, new building technology, meeting contractors, for example, and people who can help them to do their home improvement, or if they're looking to construct their home for the very first time. We're going to have, of course, our flagship Dream Realize program during the expo for 2 days during the expo. We plan to allocate 2,000 house lots over 2 days, and we will have all of the financial institutions there as well, so people can consult with the banks, those who are now receiving their house lots or those who may have received the house lot recently can have the opportunity to go to the expo to consult with the banking, with the banks there, along with insurance companies, and have a one-on-one. A lot of these companies usually have very good deals during the time of the expo that people can take advantage of. So it's something that people would want to come down and spend some time. It takes you days to be able to walk the expo. We use every square inch of the area there at the National Stadium. We have hundreds of exhibitors, both foreign and local, but mostly local. And not only for large businesses, but we encourage small and medium scale businesses, even new businesses, people who are now launching their business. They have given us positive feedback from 2022 that they launched their business at the expo, and their businesses have been a success, and they've credited the expo with that, because during that time tens of thousands of people pass through the expo. So it's a very unique opportunity to network and to put on display your products and services. So it's something that Guyanese look forward to a lot. And it's a family event, so you can bring out the kids, and there's a play area for the children and so on.
And if you can state the date, please.
The Building Expo is going to be held from August 24th to 27th. On the the 24th, we will have the opening ceremony, which will be around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So we'll have the opening ceremony, which is free for everyone, and everybody is invited to the opening ceremony, and everyone is free until 8 o'clock that night. We will charge a small admission fee after that, and every other day there will be an admission fee as well.
Thank you very much, Minister. I now pass you over to our host, Shamiza.
Thank you, Dr. Tara, and thank you, Minister Rodrigues. Very informative. There are many comments tonight that shows how admired you are as a minister and the good work that you're doing. So thank you for everything that you do. Due to limited time, because I know you have a meeting, I will just ask a couple of questions that our viewers have asked. The
Sure.
first question is from Mahindra Hariraj, and he says, if you can tell us if there is a regulatory agency or bodies are now inoperable to hold constructions and contractors to best practices, codes, and standards.
So there is the Central Housing and Planning Authority that has a arm of the ministry that does that. And so what that's once you're coming through our housing program. Now all permits for construction also come to the Central Housing and Planning Authority, and you would have seen recently that we passed the planning and development single window application system, which will go live very shortly online, so people can apply for their building permits there. But we hold them to the general layout that they come to the ministry for. So if they violate boundaries, the ministry will act. So CHPA will be able to act in that case. But in terms of building material or electrical material and so on, the different agencies will look at that. So GPL, for example, when you're finished wiring your home, you have to go to GPL with your inspection for an inspection certificate. And if it's not done properly, GPL can refuse to give you that certificate. So it's not the best system because it comes at the end when it should have come before, but there is that oversight. We do recognize that there is a need for all of our building codes, especially in the city, to be reformed and to be updated. And that's where the city council plays a big role, and all of the local NDCs. So they should be having more oversight for construction that is taking place within their local authority areas. So we do have some work to do there, and that's a responsibility of local government.
Thank you very much. I will not read out the entire question, but I'll basically just sum up what this viewer is asking. Her name is Ramona Bir Karim. She is in Guyana currently, visiting from Germany, and she's looking to apply for a land in the Lenora area. And her concerns is that she has visited the Ministry of Housing trying to apply for her land, and she's been given a lot of runaround, so to speak. And she's claiming there is no email for the ministry, and she has been trying to get her documents, which some of them are in German, and it has been quite a hassle for her. So she's just asking if there's a simple way for someone who is trying to go back to their beloved country and apply, invest in their home country, if there's a simplified way for her to do it.
So we have an online application that someone in her position can fill out. You don't have to be present here to hand in your application. You can submit that online. But of course, you have to be, it's a remigrant application. So you have to have plans of remigrating to Guyana. So you can't go on vacation in Guyana and apply for a house lot and then go back to wherever you came from, and that application will be processed as a regular one, or because you will be called and you would have to come in person. So you can that person can apply online as a remigrant, and if she's here, and but there could be so many things that can be preventing her from handing in her application. I don't know, maybe she doesn't have the requisite documents, because there are certain things that they ask for if you come there not as a remigrant but just as a Guyanese. Then you'd have to produce your tin certificate, for example. So maybe she doesn't have that, or she doesn't have a local ID. And so it's very difficult to advise not knowing all of the facts. But she can, like I said, apply online, and she can attach all of her documents there, and she'd be able to complete her application.
Perfect. With that said, Minister, thank you so much for your time this evening. Thank you to our panelists and our moderator tonight. And of course, to our viewers, thank you for your respect, your support. It's always appreciated and well taken. Until next time, I'm your host, Shamisa Ali, and this is the Guyana Dialogue. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you,
Good evening.
Shamisa. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister.
Sure. It was a
Hope to
pleasure.